the way I personally, as a sales leader, define go-to-market is who do you want to talk to, and so how do you talk to those people? Who do you talk to, and how do you help the team find sort of the best combination of those two things? So that means that I try to organize my territories so that when the reps have the right story, they can find the right targets the easiest way within their territories. So I like to hire people that have been in the industry and have been around sales for a bit, can what I would say hold up their own pants as they're walking, and know what needs to be done to be successful as a seller.
Good afternoon, Harmen, and welcome to Noel Podcast. We're so lucky to have you here. Just for our listeners, do you want to give a quick intro on your name, proper name, your background, give us how you've ended up where you are, and then we can dive in all things go-to-market, which I'm very excited for.
Well, Laura, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be part of this, so very much looking forward to it. My name is Harmen Westra. I currently lead our sales efforts within Epsilon for our mid-market segment. I've been in sales for digital advertising, MarTech, for over 25 years. Have seen everything.
I was going to say.
Happy to talk about it.
I love it. That world transformation. I don't think 25 years ago, did you think we'd be here with like AI and all of that kind of stuff over time?
No, not at all.
I love it. Awesome. So right now, obviously you're leading the sales team. What does that look like? Do you have a team? What's the structure of the team? Talk us through kind of what that looks like in your day-to-day.
Yeah, so currently we have a team that focuses geographically on accounts of a certain size that are a little bit smaller as we sort of think about it. They're advertisers that want to reach consumers.
Cool.
There's 9 sellers on my team currently, and I have basically 10 territories, so I have 1 left. So sort of if I hire somebody, I can just slide them right in.
I love it. And then when you look at kind of the enablement, the go-to-market structure, because here what we like to talk about, or we even emphasis on, is we've seen the market where they over-index almost on the talent, right? And we're really hot on like the vehicle. And what I mean by the vehicle is like people would name it like the revenue architecture or anything like that. But realistically, it's like the processes, playbooks, for someone to step in and be able to execute. I.e., like you're not going to win Formula One in a Ford Fiesta, right? So when you look at a topic that people love to talk about on here, and I love to dive into, is when you look at like the go-to-market, like vehicle and structure around these 9 reps, what does that look like in your world? And what are you trying to achieve with it in terms of that like sales vehicles so they can perform in their day-to-day?
That's a very good question. And I think that there's an ideal state and there's a what's realistic type of state.
Yeah.
And I think I've certainly gone through various different iterations of this throughout my career and in different companies. Sometimes it gets really sophisticated, and sometimes you have to sort of tape it together. I think that there's different variations. So I would say that from the way I personally, as a sales leader, define go-to-market is really 3 things. I think it's the story.
Yeah.
It's the who do you want to talk to, and so how do you talk to those people? Who do you talk to, and how do you help the team find sort of the best combination of those 2 things? And so that means that I try to organize my territories so that when the reps have the right story, they can find the right targets the easiest way within their territories. So that's the structure of why a certain list gets created, or why a certain list gets organized, or why a certain list gets prioritized. Now that's all good, and that helps from a who do I talk to point of view.
Got it.
But the hardest part is what do I say when I actually get in front of them, or how do I get in front of them? And I find typically as a sales leader, you either have a lot of influence on that or you have no influence on that. And right. You have to find your way a bit in the organizations to figure out like, how do you control that particular narrative? And sometimes marketing has a really big grasp on it or hold. Cool. And then it's really difficult to make changes. And in some startups that I've worked at, they basically said, look, Harmen, like this is your thing. Like you decide what you want to say. Here's what the product looks like. You figure it out. Yeah. I don't, there's always a middle ground. I think, I personally know what my strengths are. So I try to find the right people around me to build that story, and you tweak it every quarter because you don't know how it resonates, what works, what doesn't work, and you need to be very flexible.
Yeah, I also this is a great topic, right? Because there's two things, and I look at this in two ways. It's that weird timing of you need to leave it long enough to see if it's working, to see if you test it, but then you need to pivot quickly because and getting that balance I find sometimes really hard when I've been scaling businesses or go to market. I don't want to act too quick, but then I don't want to leave it too long, and even if it's not working. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I don't, the challenge is always, how do you know it's not working?
Yeah.
Or how do you know when it's working? That's easy, right? Because it's working.
Yeah.
But when it's not working, you don't know, you don't always know why. And then you start looking at the same levers. And basically, I think as a leader, what you end up doing is you try to pull the levers that are easiest to pull, not the hardest ones, even though sometimes that may be where the problem is.
And when you say getting in front of these people, are your sellers, are they all self-gen, by the way, or did you have a bunch of SDRs that can help?
Yeah, this is my, I guess it's a pet peeve, but I think this has been a thing for sales over the last 15 years or so that I've noticed. I hire sales teams that have the ability to get their own meetings to a very large degree, because I think that SDRs are great. They're a little bit overrated. And not in a bad way. I just don't think that SDRs can drive the volume of conversations anymore that they used to.
Yeah.
So, you need to automate that a lot better to be more efficient. And once you start automating, the reps basically can do a ton of that stuff on their own. That's one thing. Secondly, I haven't figured out yet if SDRs should be, or sales development should be a sales function or a marketing function. I don't know.
Debate.
It's a massive debate. It used to be very straightforward, a sales function, right? Where you had batteries of teams sitting at desks making phone calls and writing emails. And now that doesn't seem to work anymore. So now we need to be more sophisticated, and it needs to be more marketing driven.
Yeah.
But then you lose a little bit of the edge of like the competitiveness of getting another meeting. So I don't know where it sits, but I have not seen a very effective SDR capability within my last 3 or so companies.
It's so interesting you say this. So two things, and this is why I love having these conversations. I'm half with you on the SDR role. The one thing about account executives I think is absolutely unacceptable not to self-gen. Like I will not hire, and I always like to hire account executives, which is not always easy to find, that have done at least like 6 months to 12 months of being an SDR. Because I truly believe if you either started as an SDR back in the day, or you started like door-to-door sales knocking, like it just tees you up for just like the most insane career, because I just never had to rely on anyone else other than myself or pipeline, which meant you are the most, almost like the best currency within the business person, because you can do it all yourself. So I totally am aligned there. I think it's interesting with the marketing and the sales side. And it's interesting, right? Because I left the industry. I built a sales excellence company with a ton of awesome people. And then I left the industry to go into the coaching and consultancy space. And then I came back, and I cannot believe how much you can automate now. Like you can literally automate to people sending messages in your LinkedIn inbox, which I didn't even realize. And I built like multiple SDR teams from direct. So now it needs to lead with value. Like it has to. So people are doing things like, I don't know, podcasts, or even just like getting people on things and adding that value in some way. But it is really interesting. Is the SDR role a little bit redundant? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the next 3 to 5 years.
I have not seen a ton of, I wouldn't say innovation, because that's not fair, because there has been a lot of innovation, but the function of what we expect from an SDR, that hasn't really changed over the last 10 years.
I agree.
But the challenge is what they can deliver has changed a lot, right? You can't expect as a sales rep for your SDR to bring in all your conversation. It's not realistic. I actually say to my reps, think about if you need 40 meetings a week, right? Whatever the number is, expect your SDR to contribute no more than 10% of that. Everything else you have to get somewhere else. It's not like it was in the olden days anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And like you used to have like A's and SDRs, like, and the A's would coach the SDRs. Like I feel like we had such a accelerated career because my A was like coaching me the whole time, and then you kind of knew the products, and then you went into that role. But in your world right now, so when you look at the 9 of them, what are they doing to get in front of these customers then? So is that a part of pipeline within their day? Like, are they emailing? Are they calling? Are they in person? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
It's a really good question. And the reason why I like it is because we have, of the last, let's say, 2 months, I've really spent a lot of time with the team talking about these type of things.
Nice.
And they're very creative. Like if
I
you
love that.
let the team decide how to do it, then they can be incredibly creative. And it's just not super scalable, but that's okay. Like if it's just for them, right? That's okay. So some actually go literally door to door and they hand packages and say, here's what I got. Why don't you have a meeting with me, right? And then they set up a meeting. Others, others, in essence, instead of asking for a meeting, they just put a meeting on a prospect's calendar and they get accepted and they get the meeting.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So wait, just go back. What happens when the prospect turns up to a random meeting on the calendar?
Well, that's the thing. Then you can do a disco prospect call. It is not like, it's not rocket science. You just need to get them in front of you, right? Now, to be fair, the team the folks that are doing this, they have a little bit of rapport with the prospect. It's not the first thing that they send, right? There's been like one or two exchanges and then it goes cold and then you're like, well, let me just put it on the calendar. And then you find often people will respond. A lot of LinkedIn stuff, even though I thought it sort of died down, but there's some, like LinkedIn is pretty clever. Like they continue to innovate on how you can get in front of people in the right way. I see that. And I tell my reps, marketing will do a few events on an annual basis, right? Where they do a big shindig and they'll include some sales reps. But I tell my reps, there is no better alternative than to be in front of people. So go to local events that are marketing or media related, obviously, right? Don't go to the local winery and talk to car dealers only. But find ways where you can talk to one or two people and you get a meeting. And you spend $500 to $1,000 for a ticket, but that's the cost to get a meeting these days. And that's okay. And those are just the basic things they can do themselves. I've tried many things where I worked with third-party companies to pre-set up meetings. There's these like dinner rooms. Like there's a ton of things. Nothing really, really works except for if you do them all, you have a portfolio approach, and that seems to sort of operate quite well.
It's really funny that you say that because when we raised, we built a sales excellence company. Like we had a CEO, we had the executive. I was like the first sales rep. It's where I started as an SDR, and we scaled it really aggressively. But we ended up raising like 25 million at the time. And the number one thing that I remember, I was like in my early 20s. I wasn't really doing anything. I just remember the feedback. I remember so much how heavy, and I haven't raised since, so it'd be interesting to see if the metrics changed. But what you just said there is really interesting because they just used to hammer to us, you need lead diversification, lead diversification, lead diversification. So that's exactly what you just said on the portfolio. It literally took me back to that room where if you could come to them and be like, because I was the top producer, but no one could replicate what I was doing because I was actually using LinkedIn voice notes and a British female accent. You know, we have people like Chris Voss doing our negotiation course, Mark Roberge doing CRO. Like we have big names. I'm being creative. No one really was doing LinkedIn voice notes, but the guys weren't really loving it and all this kind of stuff. So they couldn't duplicate what I was doing across the top line. But it's really interesting that you say that because it's like, that's exactly what the board were just like, you need more, even if it's not Laura, you need different things, but that are performing like Laura.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I try to let the reps. So what I foster is let everybody try something.
Yeah, nice.
Always like try something new, something different, but then share it with the team. And some things will resonate with you, like the voice notes. That wouldn't resonate with me personally, but maybe one or two others say, well, that's great. I'm going to try that too.
Of course.
And it may or may not work. But as long as you continue to ideate and continue to, like, this is why I said to you, on every meeting on Monday, I have at least 15, 20 minutes. How did you get a meeting this week? What meeting did you get? How'd you get it? Like that generates a ton of good, I would say, creativity that allows us to be somewhat successful, I think, in this case.
Yeah, it's actually just on reflection. It's so funny that we're having this conversation because like with all of the automation out there and with everything that's gone on, it still seems to be like most businesses' biggest bottleneck.
Of course. And in my opinion, automation is great, right? If you're on the sales side and you type and you send out 50 emails like with one button, fantastic. But I can tell you that on the receiving side, it's only getting worse. So your response rates to the traditional way of
100%.
getting a meeting has basically gone in the toilet, which means that the cycle becomes, oh, then I need to send out more. Okay, but the cycle sort of gets really bad.
Yeah.
And now, of course, now the story is, oh, you need to personalize. Yes, you do. And there are some pretty interesting tools that allow you to personalize at scale. I've seen some stuff. I haven't seen it work, but the promise is really cool. But at the end of the day, it's an individual that's in marketing or media at whatever level walks out of a meeting, right, at 3:00 in the afternoon, just discuss some sort of problem that they need to fix. If you're the rep that happens to email at 3:15 with something that's related to what they discussed, you get your meeting.
100%.
And whatever personalization or whatever, however scale you're creating doesn't fix that particular problem. Like in the moment, you sort of get lucky. And lucky is meaning if you do it often enough with the right message, you get more lucky. That's really what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, the whole and we will move on from this. I just find it super interesting. And I just love your mindset about like how you've got those 15 minutes set up with the reps, because it keeps it like top of mind for them. But it's funny because I was I was being interviewed the other week on a podcast, and they were asking me, because like I hate saying I'm known for, but if I was to be known for anything in this industry, it's like cold B2B SaaS outbound, right? Mm-hmm. Because of like how quickly I scaled the business through like voice notes, videos, etc. And they were like, do you still think you need that human element? And I was like, I think there's validated AI solutions that can help you so far, i.e. you can send out more messages, yes. And you can, if, for example, in a sales thing right now, I can build a proposal in like 5 minutes. When I was back in the day, when I was creating these big deals, it would take, I closed a huge deal with Workday. That proposal probably took me like a week working with like a design team, getting all the data in, all of that kind of stuff. So that stuff, it just like creates like efficiencies. But I 100% think that you absolutely need even more level of human nature than you did back when I was an SDR. Like, as in, you need that like level of human interaction and nature back, but then before, like even more so. And I think then it will separate the A players even higher than the B players that are willing to go and think outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how you leverage the technology to your benefit that will allow you to be successful. That's always the case.
100%. So just pivoting a little bit, obviously you're in sales leadership, etc. What's your thought process feedback on, which we see all of the time, and we see this the whole time when we're doing our consulting, is top performing reps then being put straight into like an AE leader or an SDR leader without any coaching on actually how to coach the team. And then also on top of that, like having half a quota and then also being like a player coach kind of vibe. Like, do you see in the market any gaps on that sales leadership side? Because we often see they're being told to now they are coming off quota and they've got like a team of 10 reps and they've never been educated on how to coach, how to handle emotions, and how to be a leader, really.
Yeah, I have been in the luxurious position to work at companies where that is not the norm.
Interesting.
I think there's always a desire, but it wasn't an automatic sort of thing. I've worked with managers that were always reluctant to put their best sellers in a leadership role because there is this, for some reason, we all know that the best sellers can't always be the best managers and vice versa.
Of course.
So there's always been a good amount of skepticism, in the companies I've worked with to sort of make those transitions and sort of think that that's the normal way to go. However, having said that, there are situations, I think, in which it is good to consider one of your best sellers to become a manager. If they desire to do so, and that's not always the case, right? So they have to want to do it, first of all. And then secondly, I think you need to make sure that they have the skills to transfer their sales ability to other people, because otherwise they'll just become they'll become not probably a great manager, first of all. And secondly, they will continue to lean on what they think they're good at, which is selling. And then what will end up happening is they'll sort of do their own deals. And then there's like 4 or 5 people on their team that sort of hang around and the leader sort of drags the quota along and drags the performance along. So that's not necessarily something that I think you want as a business. But it is an interesting challenge. I do think that, so I started myself as an individual rep, then I got a small team, I had my own quota, and then eventually it moved to then only the team had quota right throughout my career. I thought it was a logical progression. I hated having my own quota, but it has initially, because I always felt like, how do I spend my time getting a deal and coaching a team, right? I had trouble with that initially. But as I got older, I realized that having my own quota allowed me to move quota around within my team without sort of penalizing anybody and sort of rewarding them. And what I mean by that is I could take it away from somebody else, put it on me. As long as the overall quota team-wise was met, like my boss didn't care, right? So whether or not I put $1 million on me or $5 million elsewhere or the other way around, they didn't really care. So it allowed me to be much more flexible in how I could get team achievement and keep my team happy.
This is why I genuinely love doing these podcasts, truly. Like, we used to have like hosts and stuff, and then I was like, I've forgotten how much I used to learn through them. I've never heard that response. I've never even thought about that. So you're basically saying you then had the flexibility because who really cares what you're doing, where you are, and who you are if you're hitting your number? And I even say that to my sales reps. I hire them. I'm like, if you want to go to the gym at 11 o'clock because it's dead, go to the gym at 11 o'clock. You just need to be hitting your numbers, like whatever it takes. But like, that's interesting. So you would actually, like, quarter or monthly or whatever your time frame, almost like navigate or structure the quota to help like the top performers, lower performers, etc., so that you all met as a team.
Yeah. And it's easier if I could bring in a deal that was slightly bigger, right? Because then I could hide a lot of the unmet quota about my team members in my own team quota. So it sort of worked. Like, I wouldn't do it every week. It was more like on a quarterly, half-year basis where you could move some things around. But I just have to sort of manage it a bit because it was hard to understand exactly where do I put my time if I know 100%. I need to hit a total goal as well as an individual goal. That was hard. But like over time, you learn and you figure it out.
In my career, there was nothing that's ever been as hard as being literally basically on full quota, and I had a team of AAs. I literally found it the hardest thing because I'm not that great at dealing with people's emotions anyway, because I'm just like, come on, we're at work, get through it. Like, my generation typically are quite like soft these days. But and you can't put what you do onto other people, which I quickly learned fast from HR. But like, that was the hardest role looking back. And I've done them all. Like, I've done pretty much every role within a tech startup on the sales side. I honestly found that so hard because you're kind of selfish being a rep, and then you've got to go to selfless being a coach. But then you've got to simultaneously have both of those. Oh, it was so hard.
Yep. Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. Because there's points, like if you're in sales, I'm in sales leadership, I know the industry quite well, so I know people, and then so I do a little bit of prospecting. I ask people, hey, do you want to meet with me? Then what do I do at this meeting? Am I doing it myself, or am I bringing it to my rep to reward them or to help them along? And those are decisions that you really don't want to make. You want to be able to just have a clear perspective on if I bring in a lead or a deal, everybody needs to know what's going to happen. Like, clarity and transparency is just the best. And I felt that it suffered a bit from that perspective. But over time, I got a little bit smarter about it. And I told my boss, like, if you want me to carry a quota, that's totally fine. But I need to manage what that looks like with my team. And you can't dictate that. And that actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I want to move on to the coaching side. But before I do, what I used to find really hard was having to manage people that I'd not directly hired. I found that really hard. Like, I always wanted to hire the people that I had to manage, which is quite obviously like never really going to happen. But I did find it a lot easier when I knew that the ownership was on me, that I'd hired them to coach them, than when I just got pushed into a team to coach a load of reps.
Yeah, it's I don't disagree with you. And invariably, when the people you sort of get pushed upon you are not well performing as others, but
you kind of
like I agree, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Like, I've definitely seen some people come into my team that I was like, okay, this is really good. And the same with new hires. Like, I have like pretty strict, specific, sort of lists of things that I want out of a new seller.
Nice.
But there's always a handful that don't work out for whatever reason or another.
Yeah, for sure. That's always going to be the way, right? So
Yeah.
just quickly, because I'm actually interested in your perspective here. When you, it doesn't need to be when you were on quota, it can even be now. But we've spoken a lot about the front end kind of SDR role, but when you're looking at your AEs right now, what level of like coaching, when we go back to that vehicle, do they have to be able to perform? Like, is it that they get a call review or whatever, or is it just like, look, I'm your manager, it's kind of just like call reviews, deal reviews? Like, what does that look like? Because honestly, like for me, it used to literally just be like forecasting and deal reviews, and now like I'm like really hot on like as many call reviews as I possibly can do.
Yeah, I have, this is the benefit of being able to hire your own people.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I like a team that is reasonably self-sufficient. So I don't want to have to tell somebody how to do the follow-up, what to say in
Yeah.
the meeting, how to run a meeting, how to get like that kind of stuff, right? And by the way, there's great managers that can do that. They're really good at that. That's just not me. Like I've learned over the years, like that's just not me. So I like to hire people that have been in the industry and have been around sales for a bit, can what I would say hold up their own pants as they're walking, and
Yeah.
know what needs to be done to be successful as a seller. Because then not the only thing, but the things that I'm good at that I can coach them on is the deal cycle itself. What can you expect from a buyer? What can you expect from people around the buyer? What can we as a company do to make that easier for the buyer? Like those are things that I can truly help with in the sales cycle, and make the sales cycle shorter and then close bigger deals. Right? That's where I shine. But I
Right.
cannot be the manager that has to tell every day what everybody needs to do on a daily basis, because then the forecasting and the pipeline calls become a little bit easier too, because I have a much better understanding of what their capabilities are. When
Yeah.
they're saying to me, "Oh, I think this can close in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days," I have a level of trust. They know what they're doing. That's probably true, and that way I can read my forecasts and pipelines a lot better. So when it comes to coaching, I like to think of it as twofold. There's deal coaching. Sometimes you need a lot. You need to do a bit of that or a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes reps can do a management a lot of that. And the second piece is the company coaching, and that sounds pretty straightforward, but that is product, that is
Yeah.
politics to a certain degree, the people that they have to work with, and that's I think the hardest part, because those are not always the things that I know either, right? So then I have to
Yeah.
sort of manage, who do you go to, what do you need for that, what does the product look like, how do we present this product, and those are all things that I try to collaborate with the team on to make sure that they're most effective in presenting the business in the most effective way to actually convert a deal. And that I've done that across most of my companies.
Yeah, it's actually so interesting. It's like that strategy high level side, and actually how to get in front of the buyer and then convert the buyer, right? Rather than just like live coaching them all day. It's interesting. It's almost like the difference between like, I guess, a senior leader, a senior sales leader, and then like the frontline manager reps. Because we see with all of the organizations we work with just this like massive gap with these frontline leaders of actually like really not understanding basically everything that you just said, because they've kind of just been, it's massive in the startup world. It's like, oh, my top performing AE, I'll just let them coach down. So that's super interesting. So then do you leverage people within the organization to then come and help your team with like more product stuff, more political stuff, all of that kind of stuff?
Every week, I try to invite one or two people into my team meeting from the rest of the org to talk through some of those things. The political stuff is a little bit hard, right? You have to sort of,
Yeah,
you can't
I
you
think
can't call it that, so you have to sort of figure out, like, it's more a little bit like, who do I go to and why, like those kind of things. And product. So this goes a little bit into sales enablement, but sales enablement has been I love sales enablement, right? They're great. The challenge with sales enablement is they talk about product and they don't actually talk about selling. So they just have the wrong title, and that's in every company I've been at. Is they have these amazing decks and tools and abilities, and then they come in and they say, well, this is what the product does, and I'm thinking, that's great, but how do I sell it? Tell me how to sell it. Like, that's what I
yeah,
need to know. I don't need to know how it works. You just need to tell me what I need. Like, it's unbelievable to me. So I
this is
try to
like
really
literally I'm dealing with, it's just because I'm literally with a company at the minute, over $100 million HQ in New York, ex like Bain, McKenzie, etc. And their enablement team, I've never seen anything like it. They literally have the most incredible resources. It's like, and they're the nicest people ever and stuff. And then I'm educating them on how to educate their team how to sell. And I'm
right.
like, but this is like literally why we exist. And I said to my co-founder, I was just like, we don't need another like sales consultancy or anything like that. But like, we are working with revenue teams because exactly what you just said, enablement teams, sorry, literally what you just said is like, what I found by doing this for the last year is literally every deal that I've got right now.
Yep. So it's not uncommon. I saw it at Smartly, saw it at iSpot. It's a little bit better here at Epsilon, but it's still very product focused. Yeah, it's interesting. And so I try to sort of break through that and help the team. My boss is actually really good at sort of connecting the dots there. So I lean on him quite a bit to sort of make that translation between here's what the product looks like and what it does, and here's how we talk about it to customers. Right. So those are two different stories that require quite a bit of coaching, and that's what I really focus on to help the right folks come into those meetings to help me tell those stories better.
Honestly, it's so funny. Again, this is why I love this podcast so much, because that is just like the absolute money on what I see the whole time. And it hasn't changed from when I left the industry, from when I came back. I also think, and this is me as like a younger seller, I just found it when we were building SIA, the first company, the sales company, with this amazing revenue enablement woman. Like, she had every kind of thing under the sun. But when I went into my first call with her, I just asked her, I was just like, so all of this stuff you're educating me on, like, have you ever done it yourself? And she's like, no, I just teach it. And I get the whole, like, my brother's a professional athlete. I get the coach isn't on the pitch, and I get all of that kind of stuff. But I just, classic 22-year-old, bit sassy, was just like, why are we listening to someone that's not actually done it? But I actually do think that a lot of salespeople, like, that is that friction. It's a bit like friction with HR. It's like there's that friction with enablement of like, they haven't actually been in. You want to listen to someone like yourself that has gone sales rep, quota on quota, manager team. Do you know what I mean? The value seems to land a lot more for me personally from someone that's been in the seat, done the seat, executed very highly. No, I can learn from you. I'm engaged. I'm going to be so curious here, to someone that's just like never done it, which I think is the only other thing for sales reps. But maybe I'm just a bit sassy.
With age, you get a little bit more, you get a little softer. But yes, that has crossed my mind. Yes, when I was younger, for sure.
I love it. Awesome. Well, before we wrap, just because this has been great, what does the future look like for you? Are we thinking, when you look at kind of where you want to go, is it into that chief revenue officer? Like, where does that look like in terms of where you want to go and what you want to manage and all that kind of stuff when it comes to revenue and sales teams? Or are you just happy?
Well, it's that's funny that you asked me that. I actually haven't thought about it in a while.
That's a good
mostly
thing.
Because I have gone through a couple of changes over the last few years, and I feel like I landed in a spot at a company that has some great potential in the area that I'm deployed into.
That's amazing.
And I like the role that I'm in. I don't always love the middle management, frontline management stuff, because I do, I am a curious person. But I also like to be in the know, and the lower you are on the totem pole, the less you know. And that sometimes frustrates me, especially because I've been at startups where I was obviously always part of strategy and leading. So that's the one thing that I sometimes miss a little bit. But on the other hand, that is also a little bit easier, because then I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. I just focus on how do I make my team sell the most, and how do I help them to achieve that. And that is kind of freeing to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I've gotten to a point where I focus on the things that I know I'm good at, and I don't have to stress about the things that are a little bit outside of my scope, and continue to go. So I really like Epsilon. I think it's a good team. I am not super eager in the next 2 to 3 years to do something significantly different. But I would love at some point to use my experience and my background and all the things that I've learned to help others achieve similar things at some point.
That's cool.
I've not seen a ton of opportunities. I spoke with a couple of investment firms, like VCs that did some investment in ad tech and martech companies, and we had some of the conversation like this, but didn't really go anywhere. And I find the one thing I find what I like about Epsilon, it's a good company that has stability and size and scale. If I were to move into a different role, I would have to basically, and I think what you're doing here too, is I'd have to look for my next gig every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd want to do that.
Yeah. And that's just part of business, right? We're very lucky because we are, well, not lucky, again, it goes back to just over delivering, but I have just like, I'm all about the customer, right? So every customer we've ever had, we've over delivered on, that has given us like 1 to 3 referrals. And because we're like so in depth, we actually don't need that many customers. And then we upsell from there. But honestly, any founder will tell you, and any kind of business that you're in is, yeah, you're just looking every single day for the next new thing. Because then if that goes and you don't have a healthy pipeline, you've got no business. And it's like, then I've got these people that are like the tech guys and the design guys. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I need to bring the next deal in because they're all my employees. It's just like, it actually is quite stressful.
Yeah. So that's the flip side, right? But the excitement and the adrenaline that comes along with that, like, I've been in a startup, like I get it, and I really enjoyed that.
It's addictive.
It is a little bit addictive, yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, just before we finish, which is like I find really interesting, is the AE role. If you're hyper successful and you're nailing it, like you can outperform like the finances of the CEO sometimes, right? Like truly, like it's insane. And a lot of people are just like, well, what's next when you're in an AE role? But like, there's actually something, like you just said, quite freeing to be like, I'm happy being an AE. I'm earning really good money. I know the deal cycle. I know the product. I have a really good leader, and I earn more than anyone else, like in normal jobs. But it's weird how we always are just like, okay, so now you've hit quota for a couple of years. I guess you're an AE manager or head of sales or VP and then the CRO. But I don't know whether my generation are changing that just a little bit, but it's actually okay just to be that position and be really successful at it and just have that freeing feeling.
Yeah, I have. So I've interviewed and I've actually hired a couple of sellers that have been in those chief and SVP type leadership roles, and they've said, "I'm of an age now where I don't want that. I want to sell. Like, I'm good at it. I love it. That's where I want to be, and that's where I want to sort of, spend my time." And in that case, you're very dependent on the boss that you have. Like, do you feel the relationship you have with your boss is good? So you both have that trust, because you do need some autonomy when you're selling, that you don't have a boss breathing over your shoulder every day. Like, are you putting your this and that? Yeah. So you do need to have that. But once I think I can give that to those team members, and they love it. I mean, and I think that's worthwhile.
That's so interesting that you just said that, because I was like, I swear that's not a negative thing. So it's funny. Imagine going from like a CRO and then you're just like, you know what? I could just be at a nice company, just be a sales rep and just enjoy it.
And I think that's, if you find people that love their job, then you're in much better shape. Like this innate motivation, especially as a seller, that you need to generate every day, is sometimes hard. And if you don't have the experience to sort of get through the bad days, or when that prospect, after 9 months of trying to do $1 million deal, finally says, no, we're not going to do it with you, we're going to do it somewhere else, you need to figure out a way to have the experience in the background to say, well, tomorrow's another day and we're going to start over, right? 100%. And if you're in your mid-30s and you are trying to hit that career ladder as hard as you can, and the next move needs to be being a boss, and that happens, that's much harder to deal with.
I agree. And honestly, I feel like we could just speak forever, because when I was on this podcast last week, they said to me, what was like the turning point? And I was like, if I could have I would have enjoyed my job. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. But I could have enjoyed being an AE way quicker if I just learned that mindset. Like, I remember pacing around my first flat in London being like, how am I hitting quota? Like, are there enough SQOs? All this kind of stuff. And like now, like, all these years on, but even years ago, like I mastered the mindset of sales, and it's been my biggest superpower, because I've just gone off, like you said, one will fall as long as you've got the data. You want the no's because then you're going to get the yes, all these cliche things, but actually underneath it is completely correct. And if you just treat it like an actual process, like science, and then you have that mindset of like, you literally can't control the uncontrollables, but as long as you've done what you can have done in that sales cycle, you will outperform everyone within your sales team if you can have that. That was what I unlocked. And if I unlocked that sooner, it would have been a lot less stressful, but at least we're here.
So anyway, I love what I do. I'm excited about it. So hopefully, if there's anybody that's listening to this podcast and wants to have a sales career, feel free to give me a drop.
I love that. Awesome, Harmen. This has been incredible. Thank you so much for coming on. Excited for your future, and have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, Laura. Same here.